Welcome to the deep dive. So, you've probably talked to a chatbot, right?
Mm.
Or maybe asked your smart speaker for the weather.
Or used one of those big AI models.
Exactly. You're using a conversational user interface, a CUI.
hmm
But here's the question we're tackling today. How do we actually classify these things? Are they just, fancier versions of the interfaces we've clicked around on for decades?
That really is the central question. Because, look, for years, the world of human-computer interaction, HCI, specifically GUIs, Graphical User Interfaces, was pretty neat. You had two main ways of building them, two camps, imperative and declarative.
Right. Those two categories dictated how the software was structured, how it managed everything behind the scenes.
Precisely. And pretty much everything fit into one box or the other. But what the research we looked at makes clear is that these CUIs, they don't really fit. They're often seen now as this third interaction
A
paradigm.
third paradigm, so a fundamental shift.
Yeah, a philosophical shift, really. We're moving away from the idea of manipulating things on a screen, clicking, dragging towards, well, conversation, negotiating meaning through language.
Okay, so our mission for this deep dive is to unpack that. We need to get into the structural differences between those classic ways, imperative and declarative, and figure out why these language-based systems are considered their own thing.
Even though, and this is the interesting part, their internal gears still kind of use logic from both older styles.
Intriguing. Let's start with the classics then. Lay out the old battlefield for us. Imperative versus declarative.
Okay, sounds good.
Let's kick off with imperative. This one's all about the how, isn't it? The process.
Exactly. It's the foundation, really, of graphical computing. Think Wimpy?
Wimpy.
Yeah, windows, icons, menus, and pointer, the whole desktop metaphor. With imperative, the developer has to spell out every single step for the computer. Explicit instructions.
So if I want a button to change color when I click it,
You, the developer, have to write the code for. Detect the click, change the color property, redraw the button, every single step.
and for the user, this translates into what's called direct manipulation.
Correct. You click a file icon, you drag it, it moves, you see it happen immediately, it feels direct, visceral.
It's like giving someone walking directions step by step. Go 2 blocks, then turn left, then walk past the supermarket. You're defining the exact path.
Perfect analogy. Now, contrast that focus on the path, the how, with the declarative approach. Here, the focus shifts completely. It's all about the what.
The what? Meaning the desired end result.
Exactly. The developer describes what the interface should look like for a given set of data, a given state. They don't specify the steps to get there.
How does that work then? Who handles the steps?
An underlying framework does the heavy lifting. Think React, Vue, Angular, Svelte, those kinds of tools. They take your declaration, show this if the user is logged in, and figure out the most efficient steps to update the screen. They abstract away the imperative part. Ah, okay. So I declare, if sales are up, show a green dashboard component. I don't worry about how it turns green or gets rendered.
Precisely. You declare the desired state, the framework makes it happen. That's why you see this approach a lot in things like data dashboards, complex web apps. They're showing the state of the data visually.
But crucially, they're still visual representations, right? They're not really designed for a back and forth conversation.
Not at all. They're for analysis, for showing status. They react to data changes, but they don't converse.
Okay, that distinction feels important. Both imperative and declarative GUIs, they hinge on visual elements and manipulating state directly or indirectly.
Right.
So now let's pivot to CUIs. Here, the visual screen kind of takes a back seat, doesn't it? The main thing is natural language, text, or voice.
Exactly. It bypasses that direct visual manipulation almost entirely. And this is why some call it the third wave in HCI.
Third wave. What were the first two? Well, roughly, the first waves were more about applying formal science, cognitive psychology, ergonomics to optimize human performance with machines, measuring efficiency, minimizing errors.
They're very lab-based, controlled.
Yeah. The third wave, driven by CUIs, broadens the focus. It looks at context, everyday life, the user's experience, communication, making sense of things together with the machine. It's less about just observing actions and more about participating in, well, dialogue.
That leads to this idea you mentioned earlier, the interaction itself changing fundamentally. You said GUIs are monological.
That's the term used in the sources, yes.
Yeah.
Monological basically means one-sided. The user performs an explicit action like clicking a button, and the system just reacts, performs a function. It's an action-reaction pair. There's no real negotiation, no need to clarify meaning. Click means click.
But CUIs, you're saying, have to be dialogic.
They do, just like a real conversation between people. It relies on a back and forth to explore what's meant, to clarify ambiguity.
Like if I ask a travel bot, book me a flight.
Exactly. A good CUI won't just fail. It'll ask, okay, where to? When do you want to travel? It actively participates to figure out the specifics. That's dialogue.
And architecturally, this changes everything. You mentioned state-based versus event-driven.
Right. Traditional GUIs are often built around managing visual state. Does this button look pressed or unpressed? Is this data loaded? CUIs are more fundamentally event-driven.
How so?
A user's utterance, them saying or typing something like, schedule a meeting tomorrow at 2 p.m. is treated as an event. That event triggers processing, changes the system's understanding of the conversation's context, and prompts a response event. It's a continuous flow of conversational events, not just rendering a static state.
Okay, that makes sense. It's a stream of interactions.
And managing that stream, that dialogue, requires a whole different set of machinery inside the CUI, a specialized pipeline, really.
Let's get into that engine then,
Yeah.
because this feels like where the real complexity lies. How does a machine actually hold a conversation? What are the key parts?
There are generally three core components working together in this pipeline. First up is natural language understanding, or NLU.
Okay, NLU, what's its job?
Its job is to take the raw input, the text you typed or the words you spoke, and make sense of it. Specifically, it tries to figure out two things. The user's intent.
What they're trying to achieve.
Exactly, like order pizza or check balance or get directions. And second, it extracts the key pieces of information related to that intent. These are called entities.
Entities. So if I say, order a large pepperoni pizza to my home for 7 p.m.,
The NLU should ideally identify the intent, order pizza, and the entities, size large, topping, pepperoni destination, home, time, 7 p.m.
got it. If the NLU gets that wrong.
The whole conversation goes off the rails immediately. The system has fundamentally misunderstood you, so NLU is critical.
Okay, what's next after understanding the input?
Next comes the brain of the operation, dialogue management, or DM.
Dialogue management. Sounds important.
It is. The DM is responsible for managing the flow of the conversation. It keeps track of the context, what's been said so far, what information is still needed. It ensures the conversation makes sense from turn to turn. And, crucially, it decides what the system should do or say next.
Ah, so this is probably where things often go wrong for us users. Like when a chatbot asks for information, you just gave it.
Absolutely. That's often a DM failure. The NLU might have understood you perfectly fine on each turn, but if the DM isn't tracking the overall conversational state properly, it loses context. It forgets you already told it your destination read this, for example.
Right. Okay, NLU understands, DM manages the flow, and decides the next step. What's the last piece?
The final component is natural language generation, or NLG.
Generation, so
Yeah.
crafting the reply.
Exactly. The DM decides what the system's response should achieve, maybe ask for clarification, provide information, or confirm an action. The NLG takes that decision and formulates it into actual natural-sounding human language.
So make sure the bot doesn't sound robotic, or, well, tries to.
Yeah, it handles grammar, tone, make sure the response fits the context. A good NLG makes the interaction feel much smoother, more human-like.
Okay, NLU, DM, NLG, that whole pipeline. It's clear that requires stuff traditional GUIs just never needed. Understanding intent, generating fluent language,
Completely different skill set required from the system.
and because the main interaction space isn't a visual desktop, but often just a chat window or voice, designers have had to invent totally new ways for us to interact, new UX patterns.
They really have. You can't just rely on buttons and menus in the same way. So we're seeing some interesting new patterns emerge specifically for CUIs. The sources highlighted three major ones.
Okay, what's the first one?
Intent-driven shortcuts. These are like smart suggestions. The AI anticipates what you might want to do next based on the current context and offers shortcuts.
Give me an example.
Okay. Say you just finished booking a flight using a travel bot. Before you even type anything else, it might pop up suggestions like, want to check the weather for your destination, or need to book a hotel.
Ah, so it's proactive, using the predicted intent. That's more than just passive help.
Much more. It feels like the system is anticipating your needs. The second pattern is in-chat elements.
In-chat elements, like putting stuff right in the conversation.
Exactly. Since you can't always open a new window or rely on a complex visual layout, designers embed things directly into the chat stream. Think small tables, charts, maybe a little map, or even mini forms to collect structured data.
So the conversation kind of pauses, you interact with this element in the chat bubble, and then the text chat resumes underneath it.
Precisely. It keeps the interaction focused within the dialogue flow, blending visuals or structured input seamlessly with the text.
Okay, that makes sense. What's the third pattern?
This one's becoming really big, especially with the latest AI co-pilot with artifacts.
Go pilot, like collaborative work.
Yeah, it's where the user and the AI are actively working together on creating something, a document, code, a summary, whatever. The AI generates content or suggestions based on your prompts.
And then I, the user, can immediately jump in, edit it, ask for revisions, guide it further, right there in the same space.
That's it, exactly. The AI isn't just a tool you command, it's more like a partner you collaborate with using natural language. This is really defining a lot of the modern generative AI interfaces.
Okay, these patterns, shortcuts, in-chat elements, co-piloting, they really do feel native to conversation, not just bolted on.
Agreed. They arise from the conversational nature of the interface.
Which brings us back to this really fascinating technical puzzle. If CUIs are this distinct third paradigm, all about dialogue, how do they actually manage that dialogue internally? You hinted earlier they still borrow from the old logic. Are they truly separate, or is there overlap in the engine room?
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting. Philosophically, the interface is different. It's dialogue focused. But technically, when you look inside that dialogue management component, the DM, the brain, it often uses a combination of both the classic imperative and declarative programming approaches to actually control the conversation. It's like a hybrid architecture under the hood.
Whoa, okay. So the new conversational surface is built on top of the old logic. Let's break that down. How does the imperative side show up in dialogue management?
That's typically found in what's called rule-based BM. This is the classic way to build simpler chatbots. It relies on explicit, handcrafted rules. Think decision trees or flowcharts.
So predefined steps.
Exactly. The developer maps out the conversation. If the user says X and the conversation is currently in state Y, like collecting address, then the system must do action Z, like ask for zip code. It defines the strict how of the conversation path.
That sounds very structured, probably quite reliable for specific tasks.
Extremely reliable.
Oh.
And predictable, deterministic. That's crucial for things like banking bots, booking systems anywhere you need guaranteed steps, audit trails, no unexpected deviations. You need it to follow the script for critical transactions.
Okay, that's the rigid imperative part. But conversations aren't always rigid scripts. What about handling unexpected questions or more open-ended chat? That sounds more declarative.
Precisely. That's where the declarative DM comes in, often leveraging more advanced data-driven models. Think large language models, LLMs.
Ah, the tech everyone's talking about now.
Right. With a declarative approach, the developer doesn't manually code every single conversational turn or rule. Instead, they might train the model on vast amounts of conversational data.
So the model learns patterns.
It learns to predict the most probable, contextually relevant response based on the current situation, the conversational history. The developer isn't defining the step-by-step how. They're kind of defining what the goal is to have a coherent, helpful conversation, and the LLM figures out how to generate that response. It abstracts the control flow, much like a declarative UI framework abstracts rendering.
Okay, so the LLM handles the flexible, unpredictable parts of the conversation.
Generally, yes. It allows the CUI to handle a much wider range of topics, answer general knowledge questions, sound more natural and less scripted.
So we have this paradox then. The DM uses both rigid imperative rules and flexible declarative models.
Often, yes. That's the dual architecture. The system might rely on the flexible declarative LLM for general chit-chat, understanding complex queries, or answering open-ended questions. But when the conversation hits a critical point, like confirming a payment amount, collecting personal data, executing a specific transaction, it snaps back to the rigid, imperative, rule-based pathway.
Why? For safety.
For safety, reliability, and predictability. You don't want an LLM hallucinating or going off script when transferring money or booking a non-refundable flight. You need that deterministic step-by-step control from the imperative rules for those critical moments.
That explains so much. It's why sometimes a chatbot feels really smart and flexible, but then suddenly becomes incredibly rigid and insists on a specific sequence for certain tasks.
Exactly. It's switching between its declarative LLM brain for flexibility and its imperative rule-based brain for safety and core transactions. The imperative part provides the guardrails that allow the declarative part to operate without causing disaster.
So that dual architecture is key to understanding both the power and the occasional frustrations we experience with today's CUIs.
It really is. It highlights why CUIs are a distinct paradigm. The focus is communication, the architecture is event-driven dialogue, the UX patterns are conversational, but their internal mechanics smartly leverage the strengths of the older imperative and declarative logics. They stand on the shoulders of giants, so to speak.
That's a fantastic way to put it. It's a new category built with refined pieces of the past.
A new way of interacting, enabled by sophisticated internal plumbing.
Okay, let's wrap this up. We've seen CUIs shift the focus from visual manipulation to communication, from state-based rendering to event-driven dialogue, demanding new components like NLU, DM, NLG, and fostering new design patterns.
And we've uncovered that internal paradox. A new conversational philosophy powered by a hybrid of old imperative rules and new declarative models within the dialogue manager.
So here's a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. If natural language, this third paradigm, continues to get better and becomes maybe the primary way we interact with computers, what happens to our screens?
Interesting question.
Especially with multimodal CUIs, ones that combine voice, text, and visuals. Is the visual part just supporting the conversation, or could the whole idea of a GUI eventually merge into being just one component of a larger conversational interface? Will screens become specialized tools, or the ultimate conversational display?
The lines are definitely blurring. It might be less about replacement and more about a deep integration, a fusion we're only starting to explore.
It really feels like the dawn of a new era in how we talk to technology. So next time you chat with a bot, try to notice, can you feel that switch between the flexible LLM and the rigid rules? Understanding that shift is understanding the future of HCI unfolding right now.